Hello everybody, it's the Warhipster here, coming at you with another Contrast Plus painting tutorial, and today we are painting King Brodd. Yes, the king of the Sons of Behemat. Here he is. It's an absolutely fantastic new addition to the range, and it has been sent to me early by Games Workshop to paint up and review for all of you, so a massive thank you to them for doing that. And I'm really excited to do it. I hope you're really excited to see it. So we're just going to jump in and we're going to start painting him. He has been primed in Wraithbone. We're going to do a quick bit of admin before we jump in. So what we're going to do is we're going to paint up all of his kind of legs up to his waist, and then we're going to do the top half. That's the kind of order of operations that we're going to be going in. This is just so it's a little bit more manageable. The recipes for some of it is going to be the same, for example, like the flesh and stuff, but so that the takes aren't too long, because there's going to be a couple of different things we're going to do on the knees and on the feet and on the face, for example. We're just going to do it in two halves, so this part and then this part. So with that in mind, what we're going to do is we're going to start with a roughly 1-to-1 mix of Guilliman Flesh and Contrast Medium, and we're going to be applying this all over King Brodd's flesh. Now I'm going to start down here on the foot, and I'm going to start painting this all over, just like this. And what you want to do, as per usual, is just take it steady, take it a section at a time, and a really good way of doing this is to plan out your model, which is why we start on the foot. This way we got a lot of control, we're being methodical. And we've got that little bit of contrast medium in there just to help us improve the flow and make our paint remain wetter for longer, making the whole enterprise a little bit easier, as you can see. About one brush load on a brush of this size. This is an Artist Opus Series S, size 2. As you can see, that was nice and easy to get that on there. And then of course we move on to our next section, which is going to be this side of the back part of the foot. I'm just going to get this all over before moving on to the next part. Like that. And we move around. And you just want to kind of trust your brush here. So for example, just underneath the leather and stuff on his leg, you just push the brush up underneath it and just trust that you're filling it in. It's a detail you're not really going to see unless you pick it up from a certain angle and look right underneath the foot, but there you have it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move on to the other foot now. Before moving on to the leg, because I don't have quite enough paint thinned down on my palette to do a whole leg, and you don't want to kind of get halfway through doing something like a leg and then have to stop just to mix down paint, because that's how you let the paint dry and then you end up with a drying line. But I do have enough paint on here to do another foot. And one tip for doing something as large as this is when I say we do a 1-to-1 mix, that is one brushful of contrast medium and Guilliman Flesh each. However, I did put 3 down of each. So it's not a 3-to-3, it is a 1-to-1. But I put 3 down of each one just to give me a little bit more paint to work with. I thinned down a little bit more paint. We're still on the same mix, and what we're going to do now is we're going to paint in the leg. Now, the legs are just very open and very smooth, so you need to move quite quickly here. Don't worry about getting any of this on any of the other details, just like I've just done there. That'll be fine. You can just neaten that back up with some contrast medium. Not contrast medium, Wraithbone in just a moment. Or when we finally come to doing those sections. You just want to move fairly quickly here. But still just go quite methodically along kind of the places that you stopped the last time, so where you got that brush mark. As you can see, I'm not kind of going back over the edges, all the sections that I've already done. I'm just wanting to get this all over. And move as quickly as possible. Just whilst we're waiting for that to dry, what we're going to do is we're going to take some Black Legion. I'm going to use this to paint in the sole of his sandals. So this section down here. And so with that now done, what we're going to do is we're going to take some Cygor Brown, and we're going to use this to paint in the kind of, the top part of the sandal. So this kind of strap that goes over the top of the foot. This. I have to do a bit of gymnastics with him. Like so. What we're also going to do with the Cygor Brown is we're going to use this to paint in some of this strapping around the ankles, but we're not going to do all of it. So what we're basically going to do here is we're going to alternate sections. So we're going to do this one just here and come up to there where those staples are, like that. We're going to do this a little bit here, like that. I'm going to do this bit here. There's that little bit under there as well. Like that. Then we're not going to do this middle strip. We're not going to do this little bit because that belongs to that middle strip. And then what we are going to do is move over and do this large bit just here. And so on and so forth. So with all that Cygor Brown applied, as you can see, like this, what we're now going to do is we're going to take some Flesh Tearers Red and we're going to apply this to all of the fabric. So we've got these little bits here and on the leg here, but we've also got all of the fabric around here on the waist as well. Now there is going to be variation in that as well, but for now Flesh Tearers Red is going to be the base for all of it. So what we're going to do is just going to load up our brush. We're going to pick a place to start, and I'm going to start down here as per usual. I'm just going to start layering this Flesh Tearers Red all over. Like this. When it comes to doing the larger bits on the waist, you might find it easier to add a little bit of contrast medium in. And that's okay if you do. But as always, do just take it a panel at a time. It makes it that little bit easier to manage. So with that Flesh Tearers Red all applied all the way around, as you can see, he's looking pretty awesome. So what we're going to do is something slightly easier just for a second, is we're going to take some Agrax Earthshade on its own, and we're going to apply this over the top of his toenails. So with that Agrax Earthshade applied to the toenails, we're then going to take some Skeleton Horde and we're going to apply this over the top of all of the ropes. So with that Skeleton Horde applied to all of those ropes, we're then going to take some Wyldwood. I'm going to apply this to the straps. And we've got So with that done, we've got a lot of our contrast base coats on the legs. Now what we're going to do is we're going to start shading them so that we can get them to that kind of battle ready state. And then we're going to do the metallics. There's not many metallics here, but we're still going to be doing them on the legs. So the first shade we're going to be using is Reikland Fleshshade. And we're going to be getting this all over the top of all of the skin. So we're just going to once again start from the bottom We're just going to work our way up the model in a nice methodical fashion. Just whilst we're waiting for that Reikland Fleshshade to dry on the legs, as you can see, they're looking pretty cracking. What we're going to do now is we're going to take some Agrax Earthshade. We're going to use this to shade all of the red on his ankles. I'm going to use this to pick out a number of different panels on the red around his waist. I'm just going to get this all over like this. Like that. Whereas up here, for example, I'm going to do this section. I'm going to do this one here as well. Back, for example, I'm going to pick out, let's say this one. And this one. And this one. And let's say this big one here. As well. And we'll also do the large one here on his leg. So with that Agrax Earthshade all applied, what we're then going to do is take some Wyldwood. I'm going to use this similarly on the patchwork. I'm going to use this over the top of some of our patches. It's going to make them appear as the darkest ones. So we're going to go for that one that I've just done there. I'm going to do this one here. Like that. I'm going to do the Agony of Choice. Do this one here. I'm going to go for this one in here. And so as our final bit of shading for the red, we're not done with the shading entirely yet, but for our final bit of shading for the red, what we're going to do is we're going to pick out again some of the panels, and this time we're going to be using Carroburg Crimson. So we're just going to go for that one just there, like that. I'm going to go for this large one too. Like so. Do this one here. I'm also going to do these ones on the front. So with all of those red shades applied, they're all still wet at the moment, but that's okay, because what we're going to do now is we're going to add a little bit more shade, as promised, to the skin, as it is now all nice and dry. Now the colour we're going to be using for this is Berserker Bloodshade, and we're going to be doing a little bit more targeted shading here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to pick out the areas that are a little bit coarser, so areas such as the knee and the kind of knuckles of the foot, and we're also going to be adding a little bit of a recess shade. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with that recess shade. We're going to pick out areas such as the muscles, I'm just going to start adding this into the areas that have got the biggest amount of shade. Now what you can do as well is you can just kind of blend them out like I'm doing here by just washing off your brush and just smoothing out those transitions, which you are almost definitely going to have to do when it comes to areas such as the knees. So for example, this knee just here, we're going to get that Berserker Bloodshade all over it. Like that. Then we're going to wash the brush. And we're just going to smooth out those transitions so it's not quite as harsh a line. Like that. And really it's then just a case of go a little bit nuts. So with that done, what we're then going to do is we're going to take some Agrax Earthshade. I'm going to add this to the most kind of callous and roughed parts of his skin. So for example, just around the ends of the knee, but what we are going to do is going to do a little bit more of that blending. So we're just going to take that Agrax Earthshade and we're just going to add this like that over the top of the kneecap. Like that. We're going to wash the brush and we're just going to smooth out the transition. Like so. Same again. Like that. I'm going to do this on the tops of the toes as well. So with that now done, what we're going to do is we're going to take some thinned down Iron Warriors and we're going to use this to paint in all of the metallics on the legs. So we've got a little cowbell just here. Like that. We've got this little panel on this leg. Just here. Like so. We've got the various little studs over on this side. And we've got the various little stitches and staples running around all of the fabric. And with that done, we're then going to take some Nuln Oil and we're going to use this to shade all that Iron Warriors we just applied. So with that done, our legs are now what I would call a Warhipster battle ready. They're looking pretty awesome. However, what we're going to do now is we're going to take them to the next level, and then we're going to move on to the rest of him. Now the way we're going to start doing this is we're going to take a roughly 3 parts Flayed One Flesh to 1 part Bugman's Glow mix. So we want to get a little bit of that pinkiness in there, and we can see in the box art. And we're going to thin this down a little bit more than normal. So we're going to kind of add 3 or 4 parts water. And we're going to kind of use this as a bit of a glaze over the top of his muscles. But what we're going to do is we're going to, rather than doing this kind of just over the flaps, what we're going to try and do is always go with the kind of the rolls in the skin. So we're going to try and do this from side to side like this, and it doesn't have to be a perfect coverage. What we're looking is just to add a little bit of pinkiness in there, smooth out any inconsistencies that we may have. And what we want to do is we want to avoid any of the recesses where the colours have really settled. And we're not going to go over the entire of the knee, we're just going to kind of bring it in a little bit, like that sort of thing. We want those knees to be nice and dark. So with that now done, as you can see, you should have some beautiful smooth skin all the way around, almost baby soft. So what we're going to do now is we're going to add a little bit of a highlight. And don't worry, it's going to be a little bit stark at first, but we're going to do a glaze afterwards that's going to sort it out. So the colour we are going to be using is Flayed One Flesh on its own. And what we're going to do is we're going to be looking for any of the kind of imperfections or marks on his skin, any moles or anything like that, any warts. And we're just going to be picking that out like that. Now, we've got all of the rolls and stuff and the texture in his skin, which we can add some highlights to, but what we're going to do with that is we're going to add the highlights following the contours of his muscles rather than doing the entire thing. So for example, down here on this leg here, we've got this kind of little area here. Then we're going to add some Flayed One Flesh too. We've got just in here. Similarly on the back, kind of got this little area. Like that. We're just picking out little kind of accent points. So for example, we've got another one just here. So with those Flayed One Flesh highlights applied all the way around, as you can see, the skin looks pretty fabulous. However, what we're going to do is we're going to add that glaze as promised. Now the colour we're going to make is a roughly 4 parts contrast medium to 1 part Berserker Bloodshade. It's going to be very, very, very thin. And we're just going to apply this now over the top of all of the skin. Just like this. So with that done, the skin on the legs and feet are now finished. So what we're going to do is we're going to move on to doing some of the other highlights. And the first one I'm going to add is Storm Vermin Fur. I'm going to be using this to highlight his black sandals. So with that Storm Vermin Fur applied, what we're now going to do is we're going to take some Pallid Witch Flesh. I'm going to use this to highlight the toenails. So with those toenails now highlighted, what we're going to do is we're going to highlight all of our sidewall brown areas. And the colour we're going to be using for this is Blood Reaver Flesh. Just like this. So with that Blood Reaver Flesh applied, what we then do is we take some Night Quester Flesh. And we're going to use this to add just a little bit of a spot highlight on these areas. So just picking out those sharp corners. Like that. But what we're also going to do is we're going to use the Night Quester Flesh to highlight our darkest red patches. So with that now done, all of our brown leather is finished. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some thinned down Mephiston Red. I'm going to use this to highlight all of the red. Now on some of them it's going to do more than others. So on the darker ones, it's going to do a little bit more work. And on the brighter ones, probably not going to be quite as noticeable. But that's okay. It's kind of what we're after. So with that Mephiston Red applied, what we're then going to do is take some Jacaro Orange. And we're going to use this, again, similarly to the brown. What we're going to do is we're going to take for the kind of the really bright bits of fabric that we've got. So for example, this one just here, is going to add a highlight over the top of our Mephiston Red. Like that sort of thing. Same here. We don't have to get all of it. It's just enough to make it look nice and interesting. Whereas on the darker bits, we're just going to pick out the sharpest points. So with that done, King Brodd's legs are now pretty much finished. The only thing we haven't done are things like these trinkets at his belt and of course the metallics, but we're going to do those a little bit later. We don't need to do the ropes because they already look fantastic. So it's time to move on to the rest of King Brodd. Now we are going to once again make our roughly 1-to-1 mix of Contrast Medium and Guilliman Flesh, and we're going to start painting this over the top of all of his skin. And we're going to start by coming in here and getting the hardest bit to get, which is his tummy. Like that. And now we're just going to go on for the rest of it. So with that done, at this point, you would probably expect me to move on to some of the other details. However, because all of the skin is on the inside of the model, so all of the detail kind of sits around it. So for example, the hammer is covering over the skin, which makes it an inside detail. For example, you can see this around here. You've got this kind of, well, all of this hair and stuff over the top of the back. So because it's an inside detail, at this point, down here it's outside, here it's inside. It makes sense. What we're going to do is we're actually going to just keep focusing on the skin for now before painting in the rest of the details. Because when we start trying to add shades to, for example, this section just in here, you see that, into his shoulder. If we've already painted in the entire of the horn, it makes that a lot more stressful and a lot more anxiety based. So what we're going to do is we're going to just focus on getting the skin done, and then we're going to move on to the rest of the details. So what we're going to do now is we are going to not take Agrax Earthshade. That is completely the inappropriate colour at this point. What we are going to do is we're going to take this Reikland Fleshshade, shake it up, get it on our brush, and we're now going to apply this over the top of all of that skin that we've just painted with the Guilliman Flesh, just like before, on the legs. So with that Reikland Fleshshade all applied, what we're now going to do is we're going to take some Berserker Bloodshade, just as we did before. I'm going to apply this over the slightly darker patches that we want, such as the knees and the knuckles. Well, we've already done the knees and knuckles. Instead, we're going to be doing the elbows and the actual knuckles. So, we're just going to start down here on this hand. Just like this. I'm going to wash the brush. Then we're just going to smooth out that transition ever so slightly. Like that. We're not going to focus on the face for now. We're going to do that a little bit later. And so with that done, as you can see, what we're now going to do is we're going to take our roughly 3 parts Flayed One Flesh to 1 part Bugman's Glow mix. We're not going to be doing any of the Agrax Earthshade over the elbows. We want these to be a little bit grubbier than up here, but we definitely want to have that kind of different tone to the skin. So we're going to be taking this mix and we're going to be doing this as kind of similar thing again. We're just going to be relayering and glazing our muscles and stuff like that. So we're just going to come along here on the hand, same here again, but as is often the case with these, when it comes to the slightly larger areas, you've got the rolls and the ridges. So when you get to that, when you get to like the belly, for example, you want to go side to side once again. I'm just looking to get a nice pinkiness in there, just like before. So with that done, we are now going to take some thinned down flayed one flesh and we're going to apply this as some highlights for all of that skin. Again, we're just excluding the face for now because we're going to leave that till later on. We don't need to do it at this present juncture. So what we're going to do is we're going to be picking out the imperfections, like any warts and things, and then along the musculature and curves, we're just going to start picking out some of the ridges. Just like this. So with that flayed one flesh applied to all of those areas that we want it, what we're going to do now is we're going to apply that final glaze to all of the skin, again excluding the face. And the colour we are using once again is a roughly 4 parts contrast medium to 1 part Berserker Bloodshade mix. And we're just going to be getting this all over the top of all of his skin, just to tie all of our colours together. And of course, to make him match his own legs. So with that done, it is now time to move on to a new colour. I bet you're pretty sick of flesh by now. We've only got that face left to go, but we'll be doing that way towards the end. So the next colour we're going to be using is Black Legion. And we're going to be using this to paint in a number of different details. So the first one we're going to look at is the beard. We're going to be using this on all of the hair on the back. We're going to be using this on a lot of the kind of strapping around his body. We're going to be using it on the Chaos Warrior shield around his tummy. We're just going to be getting this all over, just like this. Now do check out the box art to help you, and of course you can pick any other details that you want to be black at this point. So just take your time, make sure you pick them all out, or you can wait until the next clip to see what I've done in black. So with that Black Legion all applied, as you can see, give that quick turn around like this. We've gone for all the strapping on the mace. We've gone for the strapping just down here, the beard, these straps around the horns, and on the hair on all the back and all that kind of stuff. With that all done, what we're now going to do is we're going to take some Cygor Brown. We're going to use this to paint in basically the remaining cloth. So we're going to start back here. So we're just going to start going down here. Like this. and then up onto the shoulders. So with that Cygor Brown applied all across his shoulders, what we're now going to do is we're going to take some Flesh Tearers Red, and we're actually going to paint in the remaining cloth. I know I said that it was all the remaining cloth before, but we need to do these bits on the arms, and that's exactly what we're going to do now. This is just like we did on the waist. We're going to take this Flesh Tearers Red on our brush, and we're going to start painting it over the top of all of this stuff here. So with that now done, what we're going to do is we're going to take some Wyldwood. I'm going to apply this over the top of all of the wood. But we've also got some fur on the other arm that we're going to apply this over. But for now, we're just going to get this over the top of the wood, just here. And I should clarify, we're not doing this over the top of the mace or hammer or whatever it is. So with that done, what we're now going to do is we're going to take some Kroxigor Scales, and we're going to be applying this to all of our scaly areas. So what we've got is we've got one area that isn't scaly, which I should point out, and that is this kind of shield just here. So we're going to apply this Kroxigor Scales over the top of this section. Like that, and then we're going to start applying this over the top. Of the shell just here. Like that, and of course got the rest of the shell, but we've also got the scales on the inside of this arm just here, and we've got the tentacle on his back as well. So with that Kroxigor Scales applied, what we're then going to do is we're going to take some Aeldari Emerald, and over the top of the shield just down here we're going to apply this like that. Nice and simple. So with that done, we're then going to take some Terradon Turquoise, and we're going to apply this over the top of the, I'm guessing it's a Leviathan. Or it was. And so with that done, what we're now going to do is we're going to take some Drakenhof Nightshade. I'm going to use this to add a little bit of extra shading to the shell. In various different places, and we're also going to use this Drakenhof Nightshade to shade this tentacle on the back, just back here. So with that now done, it is time to take some Skeleton Horde. I'm going to use this to paint in all of the ropes and all of the skulls and all of the bones. So with that now done, what we're going to do is we're going to take some Cygor Brown and we're going to paint this over the top of the teeth on the large skull. So with that Cygor Brown applied, what we're now going to do is we're going to take some thinned down Corax White and we're going to apply this over the top of the mammoth tusks. At least I'm assuming they're mammoth tusks. I don't know what type of tusks, but they are large tusks. Now we're doing this because, well, they've got quite a cold colour to them, and we've made a bunch of mistakes all over them. So this helps us just colour in and correct those mistakes, whilst also giving us the base from which to work. Just whilst we're waiting for that Corax White to dry, what we're going to do is we're going to take some Nazdreg Yellow. I'm going to use this to paint in the kind of inner workings of the tree. So with that Nazdreg Yellow all applied to all of those sections, as you can see, what we're now going to do is we're going to take a roughly 2 parts contrast medium to 1 part Basilicanum Grey mix, and we're going to apply this over the top of the tree branch itself. Well, it's more of a trunk than a branch. So with that done, what we're now going to do is we're going to take some Soulblight Grey and we're going to apply this over the top of the field of the shield, just in here. I believe this is a Knight Excelsior's former shield, or a former Knight Excelsior. Could be wrong. So with that done, what we're now going to do is we're going to take some thinned down Retributor armour. I'm going to use this to paint in all of our gold details. So the majority of these are actually from the pilfered goods or trophies. Depends on your outlook on life, I suppose. So we've got the Chaos mark here. Like that. We've got the trim on all of the shields. There's one here, that one under there on the chad, and we got this one here on the side. But what we're also going to do is we're going to use this to paint in some of the kind of metal work. So we've got that bit there, and we've got this bit here as well as any other details you want to be a gold colour. So with that Retributor armour all applied to all those details, what we're now going to do is we're going to take some Balthazar gold and we're going to apply this to these kind of, well, the smashing faces of the weapon. And so with that now done, what we're going to do is we're going to take some thinned down Iron Warriors. I'm going to apply this to all of our remaining metallic details. So this is going to be like areas such as that sword blade, this shield face, any of the studs, nails and bracelets, and various jewellery. So with that now done, we've just got a couple of colours left to do. We've got the horns, we've got the little creepers, we've got this little stone, and we've got the main body of the weapon. So we're going to work on the stone and the horns at the same time here. Now the first colour we're going to be using is Briar Queen Chill. And we're just going to load up our brush. We're just going to start painting this over the top of the horns. Now it's going to look very vibrant, and it's not going to look right, but this is just the quickest and most effective way of painting them. You'll just have to trust me. With that done, just whilst we're waiting for it to dry, what we're going to do is we're going to take some Volupus Pink. I'm going to apply this over the top of the open wound. Well, of the, I guess it's the kind of inner workings of the tentacle. It's not really a wound anymore. Just there. And here. And with that done, we're then going to take some Ultramarines Blue and we're going to apply this over the top of the remaining part of the weapon. So with that now done, what we're going to do is we're going to take some Drakenhof Nightshade and we're going to do a little bit of blending here on those horns. So what we're going to do is firstly on this tip of the horn, we're just going to paint this nightshade all over the top, as this is going to be quite dark. So we don't have to worry too much about doing any blending here. Like so. Then what we're going to do is we're basically going to draw a brush's width around the other side of the Drakenhof with the Drakenhof Nightshade. Around here. Got a little bit too much on my brush, but that's okay. I'm going to go around here. Like that. We're going to wash the brush And then we're just going to smooth out the transition by pulling it towards the leather, like so. And then we're just going to replicate that on the other side. So again, just before the hands, doesn't really matter. Just want to get this all over. Like so. Then we're going to once again come out to around about where the foot is. On either side. Then we're going to wash the brush. And then we're going to smooth it out. Just whilst we're waiting for that to dry, what we're going to do is we're going to take some Agrax Earthshade and we're going to apply this over the top of his fingernails, just like we did on the feet. We're also going to apply this over the top of Brodd's teeth. And so with that now done, what we're going to do is we're going to take some Black Templar and we're going to use this over the top of the tips of the horns, and then we're going to once again do a little bit of blending. So we're just going to grab that on our brush and we're just going to round about kind of halfway apply this Black Templar like that. And like that. Then we wash the brush. And then we once again smooth it out. Like that. Then what we're also going to do is we're going to take this Black Templar and apply it over the top of the Ultramarines Blue on the hammerhead. And so with that done, all that remains on the base coat train is to take some Flesh Tearers Red. We're going to apply this to all of the creepers. So we start with this one here, hiding in the hair. So with that now done, all of our base coats are now on King Brodd. We still haven't done the face, but that's all right. We're going to get everything else done, and then we're going to get the face done as a final flourish. So it is now time to add some shades. And the first one we're going to add is Gryph-Charger Grey. And we're going to be applying this all over the tree branch. So we're just going to load up our brush here, and we're going to start applying this. Just like this. And this is going to pick up some of those silver studs that we've painted in. But what we're just going to do is we're going to avoid the yellow. We don't want that to be Gryph-Charger Grey. So with that Gryph-Charger Grey applied, as you can see, we've got this really lovely sort of greenish grey on that trunk, which is exactly what we're after. So what we're going to do now is move on to our next shade, and that's going to be Seraphim Sepia. And we're going to use this to shade, well, two major areas, but one is scattered all over the model. So the first thing we're going to do with the Seraphim Sepia is we're going to use this to shade our yellow section. I'm just going to add a little bit of brown into this. I'll take the edge off it being quite as bright and vibrant yellow as it is, like that. We're also going to do this on the wooden sections. Well, I mean, it's all wood in one way, shape or another. What we're also going to do with the Seraphim Sepia, not Gryph-Charger Grey, we've already done that, is we're going to use this to shade all of our bone. So we want to avoid any of the ropes, because they're going to be shaded differently. We just want to shade all of our bone areas. Just like this. As you can see, it's added a little bit of warmth in there, and it's really just kind of punching up this skull up here, taking it to the next level. It looks fantastic. So with that done, what we're now going to do is we're going to take some Agrax Earthshade, and we're going to use this to shade a lot of different things. So we're going to use this to shade all of the ropes. Like that. We're going to use this to shade the Balthazar gold. We're going to use this to shade all of the red strips of fabric, but not the actual kind of, well, gauntlets, for lack of a better word. Like that sort of thing. We're going to use this over the top of the black back here, just to make it look a little bit grubbier. We're going to use this to shade the creepers, make them a little bit darker. Like that. And we're also going to use this to shade the red fabric, or sort of scaly fabric over on this side. On this arm, I should say. You can also put this over the top of that brown, that Wyldwood, that's all right. Add a little bit more depth to it. So with all that Agrax Earthshade applied to all of those details, as you can see, it's still drying in some places, but that's okay, because what we're going to do is move on and we're going to start shading all of our gold. And the colour we're going to be using to do that is Guilliman Flesh, because we want this to be a really, really strong shading here. Much stronger than something like Reikland Fleshshade can give us. Just like that. Reikland Fleshshade all applied to all of those gold details. What we're now going to do is we're going to take some Nuln Oil. I'm going to use this to shade all the silver. Just like this. So with that done, the top half of King Brodd is now what I would call a Warhipster battle ready. He's looking pretty fantastic. However, we do now need to take him to the same next level as we did the legs. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to start on the face at long last. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take some Berserker Bloodshade. And we're going to use this over the top of his nose. Like that. And we're also going to use this over the top of his bottom lip. And so with that done, we're then going to take some Wyldwood. I'm going to use this on his kind of top gums. Got a little bit too much on my brush there. Just under here. Like that. I'm going to use this over the top of his kind of bottom eyelid area. Just here. So with that done, we're now going to once again take some Berserker Bloodshade, and I'm going to apply this over the top of all of the areas that we've already done Berserker Bloodshade and over the rest of his skin. So for example, just over the top of that nose, we're going to once again go in, make it nice and red, and then on the rest of it, it'll look like that same color that the nose was just before. Just like that. So we're effectively doing 2 layers on the nose and the bottom lip and 1 layer everywhere else. This is just the quickest way of doing it. So with that now done, we're going to take some Black Legion. I'm going to use this to paint in his hairs on his eyebrow. Like that. And we're also going to use this to paint in his eyeball. Like so. The other thing we're going to do here is we're going to paint in the eyes and the mouths of the creepers. So with that Black Legion applied, we're then going to take a teeny tiny amount of Screaming Skull. I'm going to apply this as a dot in either corner of his eyeball. Like so. And we're also going to use this now to highlight his teeth. So with that done, what we're now going to do is we're going to start highlighting. Now we're going to be once again making our roughly 3 parts Flayed One Flesh to 1 part Bugman's Glow mix. And this time what we're going to do, rather than kind of doing a full layer and all this kind of thing, is we're just going to use this to pick out the edges on the face. So with that done, we're then going to take some Night Quester Flesh And I'm going to use this to highlight the darker patches of skin. Just like that. Finally, just to finish off the face, we're going to take a tiny amount of flayed one flesh. I'm going to use this to just pick out the sharpest points on his face. Just like this. So with that done, the face is very nearly finished. We've just got the eye patch and his eyebrow left to do. But because they are black details, that means we can now get on with doing the rest of the black details. So that is what we're going to start doing. And we're going to take some thinned down storm vermin fur. I'm going to use this to highlight all of the black, just like we did on the feet. So with that done, we're now going to take some Blood Reaver flesh. I'm going to use this to highlight our Cygor Brown areas. And with that done, we're then going to take some Night Quester flesh. I'm going to use this to highlight the sharpest Cygor Brown features. So for example, these teeth up here. As well as just picking out the sharpest points. So with that done, all of our Cygor Brown leather is now finished. It's looking pretty awesome. He's starting to come together. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move on to our next big highlights, and that is going to be some of the more colder ones. And these are going to include the mammoth tusks here, as well as the black on the body of the mace. So the colour we're going to be using first here is rust grey. What we're going to be seeking to do here on the mammoth tusks is drawing a nice straight line along the contours of the horns or tusks. Just like that. I want to do this all the way around, and on the mace head, what we're looking to do is just run a little highlight So with that rust grey all applied, as you can see, what we're now going to do is we're going to take some blue horror. I'm going to apply this in two different ways. So firstly, what we're going to do is we're just going to add a little teeny tiny dot, that's way too much, to the tip of each of the tusks, like that. Nice and simple. Then what we're going to do is going to take the blue horror and towards the top of the horns, what we're going to do is we're basically going to relay it here, because we want these to be nice and cold. We're just going to avoid anywhere where that Briar Queen chill has really settled. So with that done, our mammoth tusks are now finished. So what we're going to do is move on, and we're going to take some Screaming Skull. I'm going to add this as a very gentle dry brush along the length of the tree, just capturing the edges and a little bit of the yellow as well. Just want to be really gentle here. You don't want to apply too much pressure, otherwise you'll get scuff marks along the haft of the weapon, which, you know, isn't horrible. It's not what we're after. So with that done, still continuing with the dry brushing, what we're going to do is we're going to take some Iron Hand Steel and we're going to use this to dry brush the metallics on the hammer. The rest of it we're going to have to do a little bit of highlight because it's too small. So we're going to get this all over. Just like this, give it that real brushed metal effect. So with that dry brush all applied, what we are now going to do is we're going to take Iron Hand Steel and we are going to use this to do some little highlights on the remaining silver details. So for example, on these rings, got a little bit too much on my brush there. I'm just going to pick out the edges like that. And so with that done, what we're now going to do is we're going to take some thinned down Liberator Gold. I'm going to use this to highlight all those warmer gold areas. So with that done, what we're now going to do is we're going to take some Screaming Skull. I'm going to use this to highlight all of our bone details. The most crucial one, of course, being the headgear. So with that now done, what we're going to do is we're going to take some Terradon Turquoise, and rather than doing any highlights on the Leviathan shell, what we're actually going to do is we're going to do a darker blend, because it's already at a pretty nice colour. So we're going to take the Terradon Turquoise, and I know we've done this once already on the shell, but we're just going to be doing this again, and this time what we're going to do is we're going to apply it all over the bottom and then kind of just lift off some of the excess. So we're just going to pick a place to start. We're going to go right here. And we're going to go right here as well. Put some on just there. Here. And there, like that. We're going to wash the brush. Then we're just going to put off some of that excess. like so. I'm just going to do this. We're going to repeat the process. For example, just on this section here, pop the Terradon Turquoise on, wash the brush. So with that now done, what we're going to do is we're going to take some Soulblight Green. We're going to use this to pick out the design on this shield just here. And so similar to the shell, we're going to take some Aeldari Emerald this time, and we're going to apply this towards the bottom part of the shield. We're looking to darken it down just that little bit more. We're going to come along this side as well. And then we're going to wash the brush. And then finally, to finish that shield off, we're going to take a little bit of Screaming Skull. I'm going to apply this as a little highlight. So with that now done, this whole section here, the tummy, is now finished, as is this little bit here on the hip. So we've just got a few more details left to go. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some thinned down Mephiston red, and we're going to use this to highlight all of our red, and we're going to do this over the top of all of the red cloth and the little creepers. Now, just like when we did the giant's legs, this Mephiston red is going to do more for some of these reds than it is for others. So for example, this one here, it's not going to do a whole lot, but that's okay. And so with that Mephiston red applied, we're then going to take some Jakero orange, and we're going to apply this to the sharpest points. On all of the red. So with that done, we're then going to take a teeny tiny amount of Screaming Skull. I'm going to use this to pick out the creeper's teeth. There. And there. The other one, I believe, has his mouth closed. No, not quite. And with those teeth done, we want to take a teeny tiny dot of blue horror and apply this. For the eyes. And so with that done, what we're now going to do is going to take some blood for the blood god. I'm going to stipple this in here over the top of the Volupus Pink that we added. Just building it up until you're happy with it. Like that. And so with that done, we're then going to take some rust grey. We use this to highlight the kind of spine of this tentacle, just like that. And with that done, we want to take some blue horror and use this to pick out the sharpest points And so, with his base complete, King Brodd is now finished. My goodness me. Oh my, I don't know what to say. I just adore this model. I'm really, really proud of this paint job. I had a little bit of a wobble. I wasn't sure about halfway through, but when we got to the end, I was just like, yeah. Seeing it spinning around here as well, I'm watching it for the first time myself and just absolutely adore it. Honestly, such an amazing job, and I hope you really liked this one. If you enjoyed this video, you love the channel, and you want to support me further like these legends and bosses on the screen before you, you can do so. Head to patreon.com/warhipster or head to ko-fi.com/warhipster. Alternatively, you could become a YouTube member by heading to the channel page and clicking on the join button just here, just like these amazing, wonderful people have done. And if you really like this video or you just want to shoot me some support, you can click on the thanks button just below this video. Don't forget to share it, like it, comment on it, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And to make sure you stay up to date, don't forget to click the bell icon. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all very soon in the next one. Happy wargaming.